this is going to be just one huge, long, rambling, incoherent stuff about Warbreaker because I have no notes. So, yeah. Whew. Where to start with Warbreaker? This is a chunky book. It is in Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere. It's a standalone book, although I think he might be writing a sequel. I don't know. It's been like 10 years and he hasn't written a sequel yet. Anyway, it's got 2 sisters, 2 warring kingdoms, 2 mercenaries, 2 gods, some priests, a god king, and a scraggly, mysterious guy with a sentient sword. There's lots of political intrigue and infighting and scheming. There's also magic and war, past war and impending war between the 2 kingdoms, Idris and Hallandren. The 2 princesses are both from Idris, Vivina and Ciri. Vivina is the oldest daughter, Ciri's the younger daughter. Essentially, what happens is when Idris and Hallandren fought their first war, the many war, they called it, basically Hallandren beat the shit out of Idris, and then they signed a treaty promising the Idrian princess to the Hallandren god king, something like when she turned 20 or some arbitrary number that I totally forgot. Vivina was betrothed to the Hallandren god king before she was born. Now she's finally come of age, and the Idrian king decides, I like her too much. She's my favorite daughter. I'm going to send the youngest daughter, whom I don't like as much because she frustrates me because she doesn't listen. So he ends up sending Ciri in Vivina's place to go marry the god king. And Vivina decides, well, I'm going to go rescue my sister. Even though I have no combat training, I don't know anyone in Hallandren. I don't know much of anything. I'm going to go take one of my scouts and run to Hallandren to rescue my sister. Idris is a very conservative, Puritan, religious kingdom. And Hallandren is a little more free-spirited. You know, they have, Idris has one single solitary god, Astra, and Hallandren has multiple gods. So you have these 2 very, very different kingdoms here. And, you know, they already fought one war. They're on the brink of fighting another war. The king of Idris thinks that, you know, war is inevitable. Some of the priests in the Hallandren kingdom, they also think war is inevitable. So there's like a lot of political conspiring and people trying to start a war and people trying to prevent a war. And meanwhile, you have a girl who knows absolutely nothing about being a queen, who is never trained to be in the political or palace setting, like as far as the royal setting goes, because she was the youngest daughter. She didn't have to have any responsibilities or anything. She spoke her mind freely, and now she's having to learn how not to do that. And then you have Vivina, this prim and proper, you know, daughter who was trained to become queen, now stuck in the streets of Hallandren, figuring out what the I'm gonna do because I don't know how to fight. I don't know anybody here. You know, she went to go find one of her dad's spies in the city, and turns out he was dying. So he gave her all of his breath, his biochromatic breath. Hi, Editing D here. I tried to explain the magic system earlier, and it was nothing but confusion for 40 minutes straight, and nothing was explained. So I'm going to let this video from Magic and Fantasy explain it for me.
Awakening is the process by which an awakener uses their stored biochromatic breath to animate an object. The process of awakening has 3 steps. First, the awakener causes some portion of their stored breath to exit their body. Depending on the object, it may require anywhere from 1 to over 1,000 breaths to animate. Next, The object sucks in the breaths, and colors are drained from nearby objects, turning them gray or white. It should be noted that an awakener can often later retrieve those breaths that they use to awaken an object, meaning that while the breath is investing the object, it isn't actually being used to power the magic. It is the drained color that acts as the fuel for awakening. Black, although not commonly considered a color, is very effective as a source of fuel for awakening. Another good color fuel is the dye made from the tropical flower called the tears of Egli, which are very potent and highly valued by awakeners. These flowers only grow in the jungles of Haladrin and is a chief source of that country's wealth. In most cases, the color of living things cannot be used for awakening. This is because the living soul interferes with the awakening process. The color of things taken from living things, on the other hand, may be used. An awakener can, for example, use spilled blood as a color source. Colors outside the visible spectrum, like ultraviolet, can be used for fuel for awakening. If the colored object is small or the color drab, the awakener will have to use more breaths than normal in their awakening. And the final step is to give the commands. Commands are the focus for awakening. The commands used in awakening are crucial to its success or failure. They must be clearly stated, properly visualized, spoken in a crisp and clear voice without mumbling or slurring, and said in the awakener's native language. Many commands are simple, concrete ideas expressed in phrases of 2 words or less, usually consisting of a specific verb and a general subject. For example, grab things. While more complex commands can be used, the more complex the command, the more difficult the visualization of the command becomes. Advanced commands tend to be jealously guarded by awakeners.
Apparently he's been hoarding them. This is a thing that Idrians don't do, and yet he has been. So Vivena's here, like, basically having an existential crisis, because between her dad's most trusted spies, just everything around her is so blasphemous, but also accepted by her king, her dad, and the people in Halandrin, because what she was brought up believing is not what's happening in the real world. And I think that goes for a lot of cloistered religion. People who grow up sheltered in that sort of religious environment, when they get out to the real world and see how diverse everything is, it's like a culture shock. And this is what's happening to Vivena now. But she still has no way, she doesn't know how to get to her sister. She doesn't know how to help her. After this spy gives her all of his breath, here she is with this power, this raw power that she doesn't know how to use, and she's scared to use, and she doesn't want to use it because it's blasphemy. So she turns to the 2 mercenaries that her dad's spy had hired, Danth and Tonkfa. They are very likable characters. They're fun and funny, and so with their help, she's trying to figure out how best to prevent the war, or not necessarily prevent the war, but if they go to war, to make it harder for Halandrin to go to war, basically disrupt supply lines and everything like that. Meanwhile, Ciri, the younger sister, is trying to figure out how to be a queen, how to hold her tongue, how to be respectful, how not to, just mouth off, because basically everyone in the palace told her that if she even talks to the God King, he will kill her. So, good job. Meanwhile, you have gods and their priests maneuvering to either incite or prevent the war. Lightsong is one of the gods, one of the minor gods. Lightsong the Bold, he's a returned. He is kind of just aloof. He doesn't remember anything about his past life. He doesn't like being a god. He doesn't want to do anything. For a lot of the book, he's comic relief. And then there's Blushweaver, who is a very sensual, voluptuous goddess. And, she is actually maneuvering behind the scenes to be prepared for a war. And then you have Susebron, the God King, who is just the most powerful person in the entire kingdom, probably, the entire land. Anyway, what I was going to say about this book, I'm not going to spoil the book itself. I think everything I said so far is not spoilery. Hold on. I had to burp. I had Indian food for dinner. Anyway, what I was going to say about this book, and I was talking to a friend of mine about it earlier, is that I had only ever read Mistborn. Of the Cosmere books, I read the first three Mistborn, Secret History, which was a novella, and then this book, Warbreaker. So basically I had 3.5 books of Sanderson, and then I read this one. And what I told my friend Aaron was that I liked this book better than Mistborn. And it's because of the characters. Now, I really liked Mistborn. The first book, Final Empire, it was kind of a middling book. But then the other two were like awesome. I loved them. And by the end of the series, I was like, man, this is awesome. But it took 3 books to get the character backstories and development and see the character arcs. Whereas this one happened in 1 book. Granted, it's like a 700-page book, but it was 1 book. And I think in the time between him writing the first Mistborn and when this book came out, I think he just got better at character development, because both Vivina and Ciri had these great character arcs. Light Song as well. I mean, Light Song, that one made me cry. Susebron, the God King, his character arc as well. Like, all of the characters in this book, they were so fleshed out. And it happened in the course of just 1 book. Whereas Mistborn, it was like you spent all your time with Vin and Kelsier. I mean, that's going to be a given. But you had maybe a little time here and there with Breeze and Ham and Doxson. And like, you had 0 time with Clubs over 3 books. And so when he died in the last book, it was like, oh well, move on. And even Spook, he was just like a furniture until the last book. And with this, like, at least everyone had their character arcs, and everything worked out nicely. And there was a nice closure to this book, because I think it was a standalone, and he tied everything up nicely at the end of this book. But I actually really, really like it. I would probably put it up there with Hero of Ages. Actually, I would put it slightly above Hero of Ages, just because I did like this book a lot. It was a great book. My plan for Sanderson is to read more Cosmere books. I'm going to read the next Mistborn Era 2, Wax and Wane, and then I'm going to read Stormlight Archive. I don't know when I'm going to read those. It might not happen till next year, or at least the end of this year. I won't get to it all by the end of the year, because I do have other things I want to read, but I liked it. I like this. I like the universe. I like the magic. Apparently all of the different Cosmere worlds have different magic, but there's some tie-in here and there, like Hoyd. Hoyd was in this book, and yeah, I just this is me. This is just a big long ramble. Anyway, that's all I have for this. That's all I got. I will be back maybe next week with another video. Okay. Bye.